I want to talk to you today about the invisible tether. Right now, it's the end of the year. You're probably reflecting on the past year. You're probably just trying to figure out, like, what am I going to do in 2026, the upcoming year? What worked? What didn't? Or maybe right now you are just so overwhelmed with the holidays that you can't even think about your business. You're thinking about your to-do list and everything else that you have to complete, right? Because you're a woman who wears all the hats. You're running a business, maybe a household, maybe even social networks. And you're like, how am I going to do this all? And what am I going to change in the new year? I want to share something that most women do not know, especially if they haven't been trained in the modalities and certifications that I've been trained in. Like, I have an eye for seeing these things, and I want to give you this information so that going into 2026, you're able to identify these things for yourself, to pull yourself out of a rut whenever you need to. So there's this thing that I call an invisible tether. We don't realize the strategies that we're running in our business, and they usually show up in a couple of different ways. If you have not taken my quiz, What's Your Business Energetic Archetype? I highly recommend that you do, because you're going to understand what energy you're showing up mostly in your business and how it's affecting your results and your leadership. So let's dive into really quickly. I'm going to explain to you what comes from NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming. It's called the meta model. And this is really designed for coaches like myself to help clients work through some things that are keeping them stuck or keeping them from moving forward. So either they're too stuck in the details or they just don't know how to move forward. And I took this and I saw how much it relates to these energetic archetypes. I started to see the correlations here. And so this meta model is a way for you to question some of the beliefs that you're having or some of the behaviors that you're going through and figure out, are they really in alignment with where you want to go to? Are they helping you or are they prohibiting you from getting there? And so that's what I call meta model. But the way I'm going to explain it is a little bit different than it's taught. So typically what I've noticed is that there are 4 different types of energetics. There is the divine energetics. And so what that looks like is, I like to say, it is the highest expression of who you are meant to be, the purpose that you have here on earth. And it's called divine because you have access to resources and wisdom that on this plane we can avoid or not see when we have busy minds. Now, within the divine energies, there are 2. There is the feminine and then there is the masculine. Now, we need both of these. We need both, and we need them. We need to understand when we need to go into one versus when we need to go into the other. I hope that you can see just perfectly there. And so we're not always going to be so much in our divine feminine, because then what that means is that sometimes we lean back way too much and we're not taking action. Maybe our head is in the clouds. Maybe we're so much doing and like researching and studying and never really implementing. That's why it is important for the divine feminine to download the creativity, to download the idea and inspiration, and then hand it over to the divine masculine. The divine masculine is the one that puts that into action, the idea, and she makes it happen. Now, here's what ends up happening, though, is that when we are on too much stress, it overloads our mental capacity. So are the prefrontal cortex. I know that's a little bit like, wait, what's that? It's a part of your brain that is, it's a part of your brain that, now mine's going off, right? It's a part of your brain that helps you with reasoning and logic and decision making. Now, when we have too much stress, then it goes haywire and we cannot reason and we don't make the best decisions in business. And so I'll come back to that in a little bit. What ends up happening is that when we are avoiding these key things, which I'll explain a little bit later, some of the ideas that you can do to be able to step into these divine energies. But the opposite of this, when we are stressed out and maybe we have poor boundaries and maybe we have poor energetic hygiene, then we tend to be in a distorted energy. Now, here's the thing. From 0 to 7, we are really absorbing beliefs and understandings from other people. So when we come into our womanhood, a lot of the times we're coming into what I call the distorted, I hope you can see me here, the distorted energy or the shadow of this energy. Now, there's nothing wrong with this, is that it just means it's a lower expression that you have not fully expressed in the divine way, pure love, or you haven't even fully actualized your potential here, right? Is because you have absorbed these beliefs from other people. And so a lot of those times, those beliefs and those emotions are either negative or limiting. And so when we come into business, we come into womanhood, we are in this energy only because that's the only way we knew. That's the only thing that we knew. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever noticed how you have taken on worries and beliefs and identities of people that raised you? I recently had a breakthrough myself where I discovered that I was worrying a lot, especially recently having lost my parents and a lot of people that I care about. I was worrying a lot. I kept like ruminating and it was like really dragging at me. It got to the point where I was exhausted, right? It showed up internally and then it manifested through exhaustion and confusion and overwhelm. As I started to trace back, where did that come from? I realized that that energy was coming from my momo. That's my grandma from my stepmom's side. And so I realized, like, wait a minute, that is not my energy. That is not my belief. That's not how I show up. Maybe maybe that was a version of me because of what I observed and what I observed from watching her. And so that's what happens a lot of times. You see a way, almost like to say, like, not what to do instead of how to be and what is possible. And so when we go into business and we're in this distorted energy, that's all we know, and that's okay. The goal is to have self-awareness and realize it doesn't have to be that way. And there are other possibilities to make life and business feel good and, dare I say, easy, right? But we like to overcomplicate it because of what we learned growing up and the things that our ancestors taught us, right? And even if we don't realize it, the brainstem will actually hold 14 generations of beliefs in our DNA, right? So that we don't even know why we do these things. It's just part of our program. But that's another topic for later, another chat for later. And so these distorted, you're going to have that feminine and you're going to have that masculine too. The distorted feminine looks like a damsel in distress. She wants someone to rescue her. She maybe gossips a lot. Maybe she compares herself to other people. And it's a little bit of an energy sucker, right? This distorted feminine, she maybe complains and nothing ever gets done. Now, the reason why it's different from the divine feminine is because the divine feminine tends to look at things in love and show up in love. The only thing is that she needs the divine masculine to help bring these things into fruition. And so with the distorted feminine, she is very much in her victim mentality and doesn't see how it's possible for her. She is, oh, woe is me, everything's happening to me, right? And then the divine feminine gets to see how things happen for her. But then even at a higher level, how things are happening as her and through her. Now, the distorted masculine, what that looks like is overworking, trying to control, and really getting stuck in the details of things. And that's where I wanted to talk to you about today. And that's why I brought in the meta model. There are two different levels, or what we call hierarchy of ideas, when it comes to any kind of idea that we have or anything that we're working through. Now, there is the higher level. So let's call this, in my way of how I teach it and how I apply it in my business and in my coaching, is I call it like the CEO vision, right? So there is this CEO, the higher level, break this up a little bit, the higher level of thinking, right? So that is visionary. That is going to be forward thinking. So let's say visionary, forward thinking, big picture. That's what I want you to be thinking about, right? And so I like to think of this when we're talking about the divine feminine and the divine masculine and the distorted masculine. I kind of think of it like in this sense, right? Now, here is the happy middle. And then at the bottom, this is going to be like more of your doer, okay? If you've been with me for a while and you know my business, you know that I have what I call the balanced work week. I do it myself and I teach it to my clients. And it is about having 3 core types of days in your work week. The CEO day, where you're looking at big picture and you're planning, you're doing some visioning and you're looking forward. And then you have the doer day where you're taking action on that big plan. But in between those days, you actually have a goddess day, which mine was yesterday. And it's time for learning, resetting, nervous system regulation. You work on your inner and your outer world. And so right here at the bottom of this is the doer, right? This is the details. Did I spell doer wrong? Yeah, I still did. Okay, doer. So this is like the details. I want you to be thinking about the details, the action. Now here is where it becomes a problem, and I talk about the invisible tether, is that sometimes we can get so stuck in the details of the everyday details that we never come up for air to realize, wait, is this still in alignment with where I want to go in the future? We start to do busy work instead of things that are going to get us to where we want to go to in the future. And that's where the distorted energies come through. So without having the knowledge of where you're at on this hierarchy of ideas, you can get stuck in this shadow or distorted energy. And so this right here, getting stuck in the details of doing, and not looking at for what purpose am I doing this, then you can get stuck in that distorted masculine energy. What we get to do is get out of this and get into the visionary. Now, sometimes you could get so stuck in the visionary and you never take action. And that's where the distorted feminine comes in. You dream and you believe, you just like, why didn't I say believe? You dream and you just think about like what is possible, but then there is no follow through. And then that's where you don't get the results. So the happy medium is understanding when is my time to look at the details and act on the details. And then when is it time to look over on all the details and ask, are these lining up to where I want to go? And that's where we get into the middle of that too. That is where you give yourself a break, where you're not being so much on the vision and you're not so focused on the details, but you're really feeling into, how does this feel in my body? Is this still congruent to where I want to go? Do I feel great about this? Is this, lighting me up? Does it serve a purpose? And that is the goddess day, right? And now it takes some work to get over from the shadow to the divine areas. It takes work in the sense of self-awareness and peeling back on like layers and unwanted emotions and limiting decisions and limiting beliefs, things that are patterns that keep us stuck. It takes work. Now, does the work feel good at first? No, but instantly after you're done with the work, when you go through it and you face these things, you feel immediate relief, because what's happening is that you're literally shifting energy from through your body and your mind, and you're getting it out of your system. But also with the modalities that I use, we're also going back and reframing some of the experiences that you had. For example, I've had women go back to a certain time where they had a negative emotion and they made meaning out of this emotion. And they didn't realize that this tethered them and that emotion kept coming up and coming up. But because they made meaning of it, that's how they saw it. And it kept reoccurring, and it built on them having the results. It compounded in a negative way. But when we went back with adult eyes and adult understanding of the situation in childhood, they were able to see it from a different lens, and it was more empowering. They got to choose again and rewrite their history for a more empowered now. So my little take on the invisible tether and a little brief summary of what the distorted and the divine energies are all about and how it works into this going into a trance and then getting stuck in the details. I'm going to share more in a couple of days about why I'm so passionate about this in my own story. But I wanted to give you a quick win right now so that you are asking yourself, how am I getting stuck in these things? And how can I use this information so that in 2026, I hit my goals and I feel really good about it. And I have enough energy for the holidays from not feeling scattered brain. All right, I'll see you guys later.